Hi there, and welcome to Faith in 5, where we believe you can build your faith in just 5 minutes. I'm your host, Reggie Wilson, and I'm back with another exciting episode. Today, we're going to be in the book of Esther. We're going to finish out our GOT series. What the GOT series simply is, it's just an acronym. Going to God, taking ownership, and taking action. And we've been following men and women in the Bible that's done just that. Today we're going to pick up about Esther. We're going to be in Esther chapter 4, starting in verse 15. It's about Esther and her cousin Mordecai. Let me give you a little backdrop to the story. Okay, Mordecai was in exile, of course, from the Jewish culture and from Jerusalem and Israel. And he had a little cousin. And he pretty much raised his cousin. Her name was Esther. After her parents went ahead and died, he pretty much was the one that was responsible for her, and he pretty much took good care of her. Okay, so there was a lot of respect there, and he was admired by her. So at this time, there was a banquet that the king was having, because now they were staying in the land of Susa. That's the land they were staying in, because they were exiles from their land. Now, in that land of Susa, there was a king named Xerxes, and Xerxes had a wife named Vashti. Now, he wanted Vashti to show up to this event so he could show off her beauty. She didn't want to show up. She didn't. He was upset at this time, so he set out a plan to take away her queenship or whatever from her and find himself a new queen. So they set up this big beauty pageant. And guess who else is there? Esther goes there because she was young and they said she was beautiful and she had a great figure. So guess what? She piques his interest. He sees her and he wants her and he's like, wow, she's a beautiful, and she's ultimately becomes the queen. But also at this time, there was something that was happening. There was a coup against the king. Mordecai finds this out. Her cousin actually finds this out because he overhears it, the soldiers talking about it. And he goes back and tells Esther, and she tells the king, and guess what? The king is saved, and then we move on from there. But Mordecai is given credit for finding out the coup, but guess what? The king forgets. So now we're moving on. There's this man named Haman. Here comes our evil character. Haman dislikes the Jews. He couldn't stand it. And he's given a lot of power at that time in the land of Susa by the king. So he's in charge right now, but he wanted a plan to get rid of the Jews. So he set up the edict to get rid of these Jews. All of them, wipe them out and kill them. So Mordecai finds out this information and he tells his cousin, well, his nieces, whatever you want to call her, but he tells her. Here is her response to what Mordecai tells her. In Esther chapter 4, starting in verse 15, it says, then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, nights or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. So here's what happened. They found out a plan that was to kill all the Jews that was in that land. So right away, Mordecai tells his niece or his cousin, whatever you want to call it, because he pretty much raised her, about the plot. So once she hears about the plot, she said, okay, fast, pray, and then I'll go to the king. Now, if you go to the king today without being summoned, guess what? You can be killed. But she didn't care. She did it anyway. But I want to talk about her principle. And just to let you know, in that story, they had success. Actually, the wicked man Haman was killed. And guess what? Mordecai was raised to stature in that country. But here's what happened. She did 3 simple things that I talk about. It's called the GOT acronym. She went to God. She took ownership of the situation. And she took action. She went to the king. And guess what? He gave her his answer. And guess what? The Israelites, the Jewish people, were saved. All because of God. Going to God, taking ownership, and taking action. Now I want you to think about today as we wrap up this series. What is something you need to go to God for? What is something you feel like you can't do, but God can? And what about it do you need to take ownership about and take action about? Because if you do those things, you will be victorious. Guys, I thank you for joining me today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe, and see you next time on Faith in 5.